Thank you very much. Your Excellency, I am glad to be standing here today to present what I can term as my report form on the assignment handed over to me, together with the Attorney General, by the Cabinet on 15th of December 2025, having approved the establishment of National Infrastructure Fund in Kenya, and also approved the commencement of the necessary legal framework required for establishment and operationalization of the fund. My appreciation, Your Excellency, goes to the leadership of the National Assembly, and more particularly the Committee of Finance and Economic Planning, who efficiently managed this process and delivered the final bill in a record time. Your Excellency, some of the proposals in the National Infrastructure Bill 2025 are informed by lessons learned and best practices from other countries that have experienced significant infrastructure development by transitioning from traditional debt-heavy public spending to blended investment-led financing models. We studied successful models from jurisdictions including India, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Nigeria, Germany, and Canada, among others. Your Excellency, it's also worth noting or saying that signing of the National Infrastructure Act into law is the wider delivery of the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto as approved by Kenyans in the last election, and this was a promise which was in black and white in that manifesto. And Your Excellency, allow me to blow my own trumpet and affirm that I am a fast learner in this regard, and I can ably explain that manifesto even though I was not part of it at the time. But Your Excellency, it is also worth noting that even Azimio coalition, where I belonged then, and Azimio is not there anymore, but where I belonged then and sat in the Economic Council, we also had a similar arrangement where we had also proposed that we would set up a fund to deal with infrastructure development, even though we didn't call it a bank as your own manifesto did. So all Kenyans were in agreement that we were facing constrained fiscal space, yet we still needed a huge and massive investment in infrastructure. And therefore, we had to think outside the box and come up with the innovative ways of financing our infrastructure projects. Your Excellency, allow me to speak to the macroeconomic context informing this proposal. Kenya's fiscal position places real constraints on policy choices. Public debt stands at approximately around 67% to date of GDP, while debt service obligations consume more than half of ordinary revenue. As a matter of fact, our projection for 26-27 is that 48.7% of our ordinary revenue will go into debt service costs. That is almost 50%. And there was a year we had already crossed the 50% mark. So, Your Excellency, it's evident that we don't have more space, especially in debts, and we don't have space also in our increased taxation. Hence, the necessity to come up with these innovative and creative ways of financing commercially viable infrastructure projects. At the same time, Kenya's tax to GDP ratio remains in the mid-teens, reflecting both economic structure and the social and political limits of taxation. Global financial conditions have also tightened, making borrowing more expensive and less predictable. Yet demands on government have not diminished. Infrastructure gaps remain a binding constraint to growth, while social sectors require sustained investments, like education. Your Excellency, it would interest Kenyans to know that we are spending close to 27% of our expenditure, total expenditure, in supporting education in this country. Yet, you still hear complaints that we are not supporting education enough. We are spending so much money in supporting health programs, including primary health care, which is funded 100% by the national government. Yet still, you still hear concerns that we should put or allocate more resources in healthcare. We are spending so much money in social interventions to our elderly, those who are vulnerable in different ways, and yet still you hear that we need to spend money on these social interventions. And therefore, Your Excellency, there is need to take out of our budget some of the commercially viable infrastructure projects. And this includes, and not limited to, the following. One is the airports and seaports. Two is our national highways, those which are commercially viable, and there are many, and we have identified them. Three, we also have energy sector, which needs more funding. We are currently generating just well over 3,000 megawatts, but we need over 10,000, Your Excellency. And lastly, I will also mention water and irrigation. For us to realize food security in this country, we must invest more in agriculture. We cannot continue to rely on rain-fed agriculture because of the unpredictable climatic conditions. And therefore, we have realized that there is an opportunity for us to put more resources in doing mega dams in this country to make water available for agriculture. We have fertile land, but what we are lacking is a reliable source of water for irrigation. I'll just give one example, Your Excellency. Galana Kulalu, which has been an experiment, and this administration has actualized. We have put 1,500 acres under irrigated agriculture, and each acre we have just harvested in the month of December. Each acre produces about between 30 and 35 bags of maize in one harvest, and we can do 2 harvests in a year. Now, that clearly demonstrates that you can harvest 60 bags from 1 acre each year. If you multiply by 200,000 acres that can be put under irrigated agriculture in Galana Kulali, you are likely to harvest 12 million bags. And this country, in the current arrangement, we have a shortfall of between 10 million and 12 million bags of maize, and 15 million bags of maize. Therefore, Galana Kulalu alone is able to fill the gap that we face as a country in terms of food security. That tells you that if we utilize this fund properly and target that sector, we are likely to be able to realize food sufficiency in this country and cut on forex demands when we import food to the country, and also address the concerns and the challenges that the population faces. This mismatch between expectations and fiscal capacity necessitates new approaches, as we are trying to do. Now, to conclude, Your Excellency, I submit that this act is about asset optimization. It asks whether public capital locked in mature enterprises is being deployed in the most productive way. I have heard cynics complain that we are divesting, that we are privatizing assets which are making profits. But they are not asking themselves whether we are optimizing the value of those assets. They need to wake up to the reality that mature assets can be optimized better, put to better use, that we can privatize these enterprises, raise resources, and invest in asset-producing, commercially viable public assets, which again would give us more economic value going forward than what we are realizing from those assets today. Holding equity preserves ownership, and that is a basic lesson in a finance classroom. But it may not deliver the highest social return when the economy urgently requires infrastructure investment. And this administration has realized that. Hence, our move towards making sure that those assets that are mature can be optimized by privatizing them, by divesting from them, and creating seed capital in National Infrastructure Fund, which then would be used to de-risk our public infrastructure projects by blending our capital with the private sector. And that is what we call crowding in private sector to be able to realize economic progress. And that is the journey to Singapore. The journey to Singapore is not about some illusion and thinking that the whole of Kenya will move to Singapore. That country is too small for the 55 million Kenyans to go there. We are going there in terms of taking decisions, deliberate, to make sure that we move to the first world. There is nothing that would stop this country from moving to the first world. What you need is brave and courageous leadership, a leadership that is thinking, and a leadership that is not held back by old thinking, like I hear people say, that instead of creating this fund, why don't you go ahead and continue borrowing through infrastructure bond? Infrastructure bond, for practical purposes, is just but another terminology for borrowing. Therefore, Your Excellency, as I conclude, let me also assure the public that we have put in place good governance structures for these funds. We have two levels of management of this fund. But again, it is important to note that the board will be reporting to the cabinet secretary 4 times in a year, minimum. But again, the cabinet secretary will be reporting to the cabinet at least twice in a year. And again, we will be reporting to the National Assembly, which is the oversighting, the people's representatives, oversighting this fund at least once a year. And nothing stops National Assembly from inviting those who are managing this fund anytime, any day. They can even invite us to explain the operations of this fund 365 times in a year, which means every day we can go to the National Assembly and explain the operations of this fund. Allow me to end there, Your Excellency, because I was just supposed to give a summary of what this fund is all about, and stop it there and thank everyone who participated in making sure that today we are celebrating a new child in the Republic of Kenya. The National Infrastructure Fund has just been born. Thank you very much.
Thank you.